has gone.
But Eldon has a list here, but he doesn't really want it individually voted out.
Because then you go immediately on.
You know what I mean, like salaries, you know.
I just typed it
A long call, yes. But anyway, that's like the Towering Inferno, but on our
There was some early on discussions about so if it actually did.
It's 9 o'clock.
Just
Nope.
by total
all the time.
performances, by
You would think
rank,
so.
play part of
You
it.
know the numbers in your head all the time.
Your password and moderator access code.
I'm not good with
Sound.
I'm good at it if it's on paper,
Every Tuesday.
but not codes, I tell you what.
Okay,
Currently empty.
it's recording.
Or music on hold.
We're gonna start the meeting, we're recording. Ready?
Just shut off.
Ready.
Okay, 1 second, I gotta push the button. It turned off. Okay.
We'll call the Stark County Commission meeting to order. It's Wednesday, December 27th. It's 9:01. I'll do the pledge first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Accounts payable, is there any questions, accounts payable? Any questions of accounts payable?
Do have a question for Al. You have a Magna expense for 2,500 that seems to be to an individual rather than, is that magnesium chloride or?
To what is it?
It's to Richard Folda for 2,500. And it's memoed Magna.
I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
It's actually under county parks.
Oh, it's under park. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
That's
thought
under
it was-
county parks. Do we want to take those out till our next meeting, or do you want to leave those in? Because I see there's another one on there too, isn't there?
So depending on what the commission wants to do, the county park ones that are under the county park 104515 on page 11 are also county parks, so we don't have a county park meeting today, so if you wanted to put those on the January 3rd agenda, we can. I already put a note for on page 16 to move that one to the January 3rd meeting because that account is strictly county park and it doesn't go back into the general fund.
In January 4th, don't you?
Was it January 4th?
January 4th?
I have the 4th, there's a park board meeting.
Yes.
We're on Thursday, it's a Wednesday.
I wonder why I put the 3rd. Okay, so basically the next commission meeting. So that one is directly tied to county park, and it doesn't roll over into the general fund, but the other one will roll over any balance to the next year. So it's up to the commission on what you guys want to do there.
I have no problem pulling the $700 one, put it on next week's agenda, because that does need to get approved by the park board.
And the remainder of the county park, page 11.
Yeah, it'd be nice, I'm assuming there's a simple explanation for it, but,
For the Magna one,
yeah.
I actually know what that is.
Oh, okay.
So it's an invoice. It's like these cans of stuff that they spray down to keep the garbages from blowing away. And it goes underneath the pads on top of the concrete, is what I understood.
I think what she's talking about is there a pad that goes on the bottom of the dumpster and you set it there, you can set them out. Otherwise, when the wind comes, it flips them all over. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then we checked on the Lakeview Park plan. That was approved back in, I think it was March, to go forward with doing a plan with an architect. So that's where that came from.
Any other questions on the accounts payable? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve.
Making a motion to approve the bills as presented.
Less the
Less
700 one.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
A motion, a second, any other discussion? No other discussion, roll call vote, Commissioner Marsh, Commissioner Messer,
Aye.
Commissioner Claris,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
the chair votes aye, motion carried. Next, we have open a public hearing on parcels 41-5010-00000-200 and 300 on that. It's two properties that we talked about last meeting on there, that we changed the value of them.
Do we need to wait till 10 o'clock since it's published that way?
Oh, yeah, it's 10 o'clock, I'm sorry, I got that ahead of myself here. Okay, and move on to the Stark County Fairgrounds and Motorsports Park Security Grant.
Morning, Commissioners. I wasn't at the last meeting when this was brought up, so I'm here to answer any questions.
I guess we visited a little bit about this, and I think there was some confusion. We had discussed about the flexibility in the use of these metal detectors. I guess my question was, is the grant so specific that we couldn't use it for, if there was, we needed to put it in front of a gym, if there was, a public forum or something that we thought it was necessary to provide some security, or any other type of event like that.
Yeah. No, we can move them so long as the Motor Parkway and the fairgrounds always take priority if there's conflicting events, since they are bought for both, but we can move them temporarily.
And then one thing that you brought up that, we discussed this a little bit as far as, I think a lot of people would be a little bit off-put by metal detectors at the fairgrounds, because I think every rancher and every person in Stark County carries a jackknife probably. So you can reduce the sensitivity of some of these things to maybe make sure it doesn't go off on cell phones and things like that.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, so we can change the sensitivity on them, and they come with cards that are easily programmable, so it's a quick change if we want to change the sensitivity. And it's called Quick Cue, so it's trying to eliminate cell phones or small metal objects, hopefully only identify like large metal objects such as guns to get people through quicker, but also grab people that are maybe looking to to do something to these locations. These two locations were identified as soft targets, so they're areas that are accessible to the public generally, but they're not heavily secured, so they're relatively unprotected.
Another feature of these that you mentioned that I think would be helpful for us as far as tracking activity at events such as the motorsports, or I mean, it'd be nice to actually know actual numbers of people going in and coming out, or going into these things, so we can track actual viewership and see how we're really doing at these events too. So they can be used for that as well.
Yep, they can track attendance, and it will track as people are going out as well. So we can kind of get an accurate number, but not doubling up our count if people are going in and out.
I have a quick question. So who would determine, and how is the determination made as far as the criteria? So if you have an event out at the fairgrounds, so if these units are gonna be stored indoors until an event, so if, how would the criteria, or how would the decision be made to use them or not use them?
I think it would be up to the event. There are going to be some events that are going to want security in place, not only for the people attending the event, but also for if we have performers coming in, they want security as well. So I think that's going to be up to whatever the event is coming in, if they would prefer to have them or not.
So do we, and just the logistics of it, do we expect like the sheriff's department to be able to, they're gonna be there basically manning these, right?
That would be my assumption.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any idea what the percentage of utilization of these are? How many times do you think a year they're gonna be used?
I can't really anticipate that, no.
Very low?
I imagine over the 4th of July, I mean, when you have national acts coming in, they might require something
Yeah.
like this. But I think just going back to the tracking of the attendance is something you could use them for everything.
I think that the more you use it, I think the more you're gonna wanna use it, just for different information you can get from it. I mean, probably doesn't take much to set it up. I mean, you roll it out there on wheels and turn it on, and it's just a comfort level of, you know, change is always a little bit more difficult, but once you start using it, I think you're gonna wanna use it all the time.
Yep. And we watched a demo on them too, and when you walk through them and it detects something, it has lights on both sides, and it will actually pinpoint. So if it was at my hip, it will pinpoint it at the hip. So if they have to check you again, they can do a quick scan. So it's trying to get people through quickly and trying to negate any of those false detections.
And just for the, for the public too, we're fully getting reimbursed for this, right? There's no percentage for the paid with the county?
Yep. So for 4 scanners, $25,748, and that's 100% funded by the state. Once we make the purchase and I show proof of purchase, I'll get the reimbursement.
Okay. Sheriff's Department got some comment?
Yeah, I just want to clarify as far as staffing from the sheriff's office. This would be additional staffing as to what we do now. So my understanding, this would be some sort of an overtime program. It would be something out of what we normally do now. So we'd have to look at bringing in deputies that would be on a day off, pay them overtime, reserve deputies, that sort of thing. Existing on-shift personnel for these extra events, this would be something above and beyond that.
So typically the promoter would pay that expense then?
I guess that's a discussion and a decision we'd have to look at on how that's gonna be taken care of.
Well,
If
typically,
they hire private security to come in and monitor
I guess that's my
machine,
question.
that's, again, that's a discussion that I think going forward that we would need to have and clarify.
it
Again,
typically.
automatically assuming the sheriff's department is gonna do it under current staffing, we wouldn't be able to do that.
But at major events, typically there's a sheriff's presence or SO presence.
Right, generally normally on shift, if we bring in extra personnel to be there for those larger events, that is in an overtime capacity. And they're there, you know, walking the site and that sort of thing, so.
But they wouldn't be specific to that detector, so I mean, the
Right.
promoter, I think, would be the one responsible to pay for somebody to be there. You know,
Assigning a deputy to specifically man that security checkpoint, again, you're looking at additional staffing there.
So could the promoter opt out?
I think that's discussion from the county as to, you know, what.
Yeah, I mean, so if
put
we
this
have
in-
an event out there, or just pick your 4th of July concert, and the they go through the list of criteria, and there's a line item for X amount of dollars for security for these units, and the promoter goes, ooh, I don't want to pay that X amount of dollars, can he or she opt out of that?
I would have to, if they would, I would think there has to be an additional insurance or something onto that required if something would happen, that if that liability falls back onto them. I don't know how that would work. That'd be a question, I think, for our state's attorney to.
One I'm not gonna answer off the top of my head.
What's that?
Said it, one I'm not gonna answer off the top of my head.
Oh, I didn't
without-
expect that, but yeah.
I mean,
But yeah, I
does
think
this-
it's a good legitimate comment.
Or does this just go down the line of, this is our policy?
Well, and then where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
So if you have a 4-H event out there, are you gonna say, ooh, we gotta run you through a metal detector? So I think somebody or some group needs to develop a policy that we adopt so that there is no gray area. And that it's not whatever, it's a checkbox.
I think that would fall back under our emergency management to try and,
Well, it's not an emergency, though. I think it would be under fairgrounds or.
I'm actually pretty sure that, well, Lisa handles all of her contracts. So she's gonna have the contracts that all of those sponsors, event people fill out. So that would have to be something on one of their contracts.
Okay. Well,
and I guess it's gonna depend too also if we're using it more for head counting or if it's more for security.
Bingo. So I guess I would look to have somebody or a couple of people make a policy that is adopted by the boards, that we don't have individuals making decisions who can come and go without this procedure or whatever. So that's what I'd like to see.
And Elena, you probably don't have to invent the wheel on that, I would guess, if you reached out to like Burley County or
No, I don't think
Minot
so.
State Fair.
I
or
would think there's policies in place.
Red
If you
River
choose
Valley,
not
they probably
to
have some.
take security measures, you take the liability if something happens.
Okay.
That's a good idea to look at the other counties that are using it, something to
I
that.
can reach out.
Great.
Any other discussion? Guess we look for a motion then to approve or deny this grant.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion that we approve the grant request or the purchase of these detectors with the idea that we're going to be fully reimbursed through the grant dollars.
I'll second that.
A motion second, any other discussion?
Actually, where would you like that purchase to come from as far as do we get reimbursed? Do you know how fast the reimbursement is? So
After I have proof of payment, I think it takes about a week, 2 weeks,
okay.
usually pretty quickly.
Okay, so is this something that the commission wants to do out of the general fund, purchase it, or do you prefer to have it under emergency management and then reimburse through there?
Well, if it's fully refundable within a week or two, I think the general fund would be fine.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call vote then, Commissioner Claris,
Aye.
Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carried. Then we'll go on to the Everbridge contract.
So Everbridge is our community alerting system. We use this for our reverse 911. The premise behind it is typically on an average day, you're not gonna know the best way to get a hold of somebody. So we use Everbridge. It hits your landline is automatically signed up for it, so you're gonna get a landline phone call. And then if you're signed up for Everbridge, you should get an email and also a text message. So it's the best way to contact people for critical information during the day, any time of the day. What I'm looking at doing is signing the 3-year contract instead of the 1-year contract. That will take us down about $200 from the 1-year contract. And then from previous years, we've actually gone up $1,000. So I don't know trending what we're gonna look at for the next couple of years as far as going up. But my hope is that by signing the 3-year contract, I'll save us a couple $1,000s. And then when I have to sign the 4-year contract, or on the contract on the 4th year, the money that we saved can go towards that new contract.
How many current years have we had this contract?
When I look back at invoices, I saw back from 2012. And
And
in.
3 years is the longest contract you can have with them?
Yes, 3 years is the longest contract I can sign for. And let's see, in 2012 to 2018, we were paying $8,785. 2019, we went to 9,224. 2022 was 9,497, and then we saw this $1,000 jump this year. So I'm not sure why we went up $1,000 as opposed to the previous years, was only like $200, $500. I have no idea if it's gonna stabilize or if it's gonna keep increasing.
Elena, I just had a question on the dollar amount. So if you decide to go with the 3-year contract, do we just pay that $10,272.07 every year, or is it a lump sum on the first year?
It should be $10,200,
$272.07.
$272.07 every year.
They'll just bill us
Okay.
every year.
Yep, so it should
Okay.
just lock us into a price.
Okay.
I would have a Elena, so we discussed this a little bit, and I think that, I think it's a great service if it's used, right? And I think that that's a little bit of our problem here. I mean, I'm a citizen here, and I've been on this commission, and I've been with emergency management, and I really didn't even understand that this Everbridge account even existed. So after visiting with you, I mean, it's a very simple process. It took me 5 minutes to get signed up.
Yep.
And I don't think enough people know about this.
No, when I looked at our numbers, as far as signups, we have 11,841 registrations, and that's out of, 35,000 residents in Stark County. So we're under half of sign up, and that's most likely even a lot of landlines, because landlines are automatically signed up. But you as a citizen have to sign up for yourself as far as the mobile phone and the email.
And there's no limit on how many people can sign up for that
Nope.
10,000?
Nope, there's no limit. We are limited on the amount of messages I can send out throughout the year, which is 1,500,000. We've sent out 30,000 this year, so I don't think we're close, even if I.
That was how many messages you sent?
Yep.
The 30,000, because me and Dean were looking at it and wondering if that's how many people the message went out to. And you're saying no.
No,
it's
that's just how
11.
many we've sent out.
Separate messages?
Yes.
Not
These-
identical.
These are these a lot of these messages
Well,
are
they're
generated.
Mass
by-
message.
So they're messages throughout the year that have
Okay.
gone to multiple residents, or a lot of the agencies use them as messaging between employees. I know dispatch uses them when they need to find staffing. And then if we were having an incident, we could send messages to first responders telling them where to go, what we need them to do, and stuff like that. So it is an important tool. But we're hoping to utilize it more for the public in the coming year, not only with like signing up, but just as far as getting more messages out there. To kind of give you guys an example of the messages we can send out. So there's 4 different kinds of messages I can send out. There's alert, which is the beginning of an incident or during the incident. So if we have an active shooter, I can alert people, and I can do it geographically. So I don't have to send it out to the entire county. I can send it out to a region that is affected by that incident.
Isolate it.
So I can isolate it, yes. And then there's warnings, so that's before an incident, so I can send out weather warnings. And in the Everbridge sign up, you can sign up for weather alerts that come from the National Weather Service. You can opt out of them, and you can actually set timing of when you want to get those alerts. So if you don't want to get them from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., you don't have to. But if something were to come in and I think it's life-threatening, I would send it, and it would bypass that desire not to get them in the middle of the night, because I find it important. And then notifications, which are protective actions that I want people to do, if I want them to evacuate, if I want them to shelter in place, if I want them to go a certain route. And then a new part of the program that we're looking at is called Nixle, and that's for community information. So if there's blocked roads that I want people to avoid, or if I want them to know about smoke coming from Canada that might impact their health, I can put that out there on Nixle, and it won't go through emergency trafficking routes. So people don't have to be inundated with emergency messages. It's called message fatigue. So when you get these constant messages, when a real one comes in, you tend to ignore it. So the hope with Nixle is that I can put out less life-threatening information, but important information. And then when the real stuff comes in, you see the real stuff and you take it seriously.
So if I sign up my cell phone number for this service, do I can I opt out of certain messaging, or do I get it all?
Just the weather alerts. You can't opt out of the critical alerts.
Okay.
Do they have a smaller plan option? Because, I mean, it just seems, I know that the credits don't roll over, right? So even if you triple your use of the messaging system, you're still only using 100,000 of the 1.5 million we're paying for.
No, I asked, and he said that's the standard. They used to be unlimited, but they found people overusing it, so then that's when they, yeah.
Okay.
And he said if for whatever reason we go over 1,500,000 messages, before they charge us more, he would have a conversation with me. So there is a little bit of a safety net there, but if I go over 1 million messages, we've got something going on, so.
I was just curious.
But our hope for this coming year is to really get out to the public and get more sign up and get more engagement on it. It is pretty important for people to have that information when they need it.
How do we plan to let others know in the community that we have this service?
We're planning a flyer to hopefully send out to everybody in the community. And then when we go to events, we're gonna have a tablet available for people to sign up with us. So if they have questions, we can sign them up there. And if people have current accounts, they should go in and make sure that their information is up to date, because all the messaging is based geographically.
And since we're recording all this, where would they go to sign up?
They can go on our Stark County website, and under emergency management, there's a section that's for citizen alert is what it's called. And it takes you to a link to sign up, so.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Now to look for a motion then to approve this contract either for the 1 year or 3 years.
Well, I make a motion that we go for the 3-year contract and renew it and
Okay, I have a
some money with it.
Try to save some money, that's my hope.
motion to have a second.
I would second.
Have a second. Any other discussion? Not roll call vote, then Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner Clares.
Aye.
Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thank you.
Cheers.
Next, we'll go to the Sheriff's Department, and back to blue resolution.
Do you want this back, Eldon?
I haven't looked at that yet. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Eldon Mayer, Stark County Sheriff's Office. I guess I'm here today. Apparently, we need a resolution. In the 2022 legislative session, there was a bill called Back to Blue. Essentially, this was a funding mechanism for law enforcement agencies statewide for recruitment and retention of law enforcement officers. There was a block of money set aside. There was a formula that was based on the number of personnel that you had inside of each agency. Stark County received $39,742. We were given some latitude on how we determined who would receive that money. Again, it just had to be designated for recruitment and retention. Here at Stark County, through our assessment, we don't have a huge recruitment issue. The last few hiring processes that we've gone through, we've had ample applicants, a good pool of candidates to choose from. So we focus primarily on retention of our current employees. We looked at primarily our line level, so it would be corporals on down through to the deputies and a couple of our reserve deputies. None of the administrative staff is receiving any of this money. So the sheriff, the chief deputy, the lieutenants, and our sergeants are not receiving this money. We looked at a little bit as to what they actually received in their normal pay increase this last session. That was some consideration that we used as well. Again, retention primarily for our line level from corporal on down, and in addition to two of our more full-time reserve deputies that work for us. We're opting to do this bump, I guess, in their normal payroll. So obviously we need some sort of a resolution so that that can be included within the January 19th payroll coming up here. So I guess that's why we're here today.
Would this be a separate line item in the payroll onto your paycheck every month? Like,
No, it would be a lump sum, but it would be ran through the
Okay.
payroll so that all the right taxes and everything are taken out.
one time? Yep.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
one-time lump sum payment, so, and it's only good for this coming year. It won't be a recurring bump going into 2025. It would be just this one-time bump.
And that would be on the first paycheck of the new year? Second paycheck of the
The January 19th pay cycle of 2024.
The first paycheck would be covering the end of December.
correct.
So if this was paid for by the grant, do we have an expense in doing the matching or the retirement and those?
There'll be no retirement. It's not eligible for retirement, but we will have the expense of the matching FICA and Medicare.
Okay.
That should be the only expense we have.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not, I'll look for a motion for this resolution number 11-2309.
I'll move to approve the Back to Blue resolution and authorize the chairman to sign it.
I'd second it.
Motion is second, other discussion? All in favor, state aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we go on to the Stark County Job Development Association. There's two board members that need approval. They've submitted two names to us. First one is John Oderman with the City of Dickinson, and then Jeff Moore is on the Dickinson Airport Authority. They're the two names that have been forwarded to us for approval on to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to appoint John Oderman for the City of Dickinson and Jeff Moore representing the Dickinson Airport Authority onto the Stark County JDA with term to expire of December 31st, 2026.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second?
So those are the only, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I can talk after you second
I'll
it.
second.
Those are the only two options that we have, there's no other options out there that have been presented?
So my understanding is that they're allowed to put forth, any sort of interest or anything was brought forward to the Chamber of Commerce, correct? Does that sound right, Neil, for this one?
It doesn't go to the chamber, it comes to the JDA.
To the JDA board directly, and then this is who they're putting forward as, if anybody showed any interest. These are the ones that they selected out of showing interest.
Okay.
So it, to a certain, I think the question that Bernie's trying to get to is if this is opened up to the public, to a certain point it is, to a certain point, I think the term has to be reflective entities, so that's why the airport authority is there and the city is there. As far as I know, nobody else expressed interest.
Okay.
We actually had to go out and approach the airport authority to get Mr. Moore's name, so.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of those two names being submitted to the JDA, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Okay, next to the 2024 state aid distribution.
Okay, so the commission has presented with our state aid distribution payments that were made in 2023. It has every month we receive those payments, and currently the percentages are divided up between the listed funds. Those percentages was what we changed to, I believe, 2 years ago. Some of the discussion I've had is that maybe we keep the percentages as they are and then actually address this come maybe closer to the budgeting time frame, because the concern is that these entities that have been receiving these state aid distribution amounts from us, if you decide to change their percentages, then it might make their budgets not so great for 2024. But that is entirely up to the commission. We have a lot of the rural fire departments currently at that 1% of our state aid mark. And then we have, Mott in New England, we kind of just base it on how many people and how many tax dollars are even relevant to us. So Mott receives the smallest amount of our state aid for our fires, along with Regent, Billings, Hebron, because we have less people in those areas. And then New England Fire, we have a few more people down in New England, so we give a little more to New England Fire. And then obviously Dickinson Rural Fire has the most people in their area, so they receive more than the other fire departments. Then we have Stark Soil and Southwest Water. I mean, they're just at, 0.0025 of our state aid distribution, because currently we're not levying any dollars for Southwest Water. And so it's just a very minimal amount to keep them on the list. I'm hoping weed control next year we're able to go down from that 5%. And then we have senior citizens in Southwest District Health. And then, of course, County Road Unorganized is at 20%, and County Road and Bridge is at 5%. So they get 25% overall. And then our general is at 58%. So the commission is welcome to, change some of those if they think it should be different. Just be aware that the fire department such are taking into account that they have received increased state aid distribution, and that was already put into their budgets of hopefully, because we never know what this dollar amount's going to be, right, until it shows up that month.
I guess just to start the discussion, one of the things we talked about during the budgeting process was specifically to the road department and Al's crew out there is, this is a roller coaster potential revenue stream. And when times are going good, it's all good. And then when the times slack off, then those revenue streams kind of dry up. And so one of the things we talked about that I think I would like to see us discuss is to take some of the county road, unorganized county road and bridge, and reallocate it, let it go back into the general fund, so that on those years when this revenue stream is not doing well, it's kind of a stabilizing fund, so that our services don't have to drop off in those tough years, because obviously the road department is our largest line item. And again, the good news is we can adjust this formula on an annual basis. But I think it would be good planning on us to, you could even add, I would defer to Karen, but we could potentially even add a line item there as the county road or county road and bridge stabilization fund, or whatever you want to call it. And then just make sure that money stays there from year to year to year, so that if something happens down the road, we have the ability to backfill that. And if it doesn't work, or if we don't need it, then we can make a distribution out of that into the road and bridge. So, thoughts?
It would still stay dedicated to roads and bridges,
That would be my intent.
because basically they don't get money from any taxes.
Well,
Really?
they do, they get the 10 mills and the
Yeah.
18 mills.
But I mean, that's just dedicated for that.
Right.
We don't wanna lose that.
Right, and so what I'm kind of throwing out there for discussion is if everything's, you know, if we get on a policy or a practice of spending the 10 mills, the 18 mills, and everything that comes in, this is, you know, a significant amount of money. If we spend that every year, and then all of a sudden this goes down, what are we gonna do to maintain, to allow our road department to do the job that we want them to do, so.
So I think one thing that the commission could do is if you wanted to set up like a special road and bridge fund and put this money in there. The only thing is we don't really want any more special funds without a plan, right? So if you're gonna take this and put it into a special fund more dedicated to county road and bridge that's outside of the levy dollars, I think we just have to make sure that we have some sort of plan to back that fund up, because we don't want any more funds without any plan.
I mean, you could
Right.
put a cap on it. You could say, we want to do this fund, put it into this fund until it reaches $1 million or whatever it is. And then when it goes back, when it hits the million, we go back to this formula, and if we have to go and dip into that $1 million, then we can come in the next year, do a policy where we fill it back up. We have some projects out there. This would also
Right.
be a good opportunity for us to maybe expedite some of these projects that are sitting out there 4 or 5 years from now, and maybe get them pushed up a year or two. I don't know. The hell would see if you think this is functional or.
You know, I think it would, because, you know, now we're not eligible for prairie dog funding. We're just based on our, you know, their extraction taxes, and as of right now, I don't think we get any of that.
Right.
You know,
Karen, I had a question. What's the origin of the state aid? What's it coming from? I mean, is it based on the oil? I mean, why are we getting it? And where is it coming from?
So the state aid, and I might have to look at it again, because I look at it and then I think of oil and gas, but it does have to do with some of the distributions, as far as I know, like from the state is collecting on those permits and those fees, is what I understood from it does come from oil and gas in a way. It's just not direct oil and gas revenue, is kind of the way that I understood it. But I can send you out the commission, I can send you out the exact description that they have, but it does vary very much. If oil and gas is down, that state aid it's down there.
And that's where I'm kind of getting at. I mean, a person can get really used to having these funds come in and making plans for it, and then the dollars go away based on that kind of appetite. And, been in that business a long time. It's very volatile, and sometimes the money goes down, and like I said, you're making plans ahead of time because you think it's always going to be there. I mean, just a scenario, Neil, maybe possibly is if you ever get to a point, this year, of course, we don't have any snow to remove, right? But I mean, in recent past years, we've had significant need for snow dollars, and then we find ourselves possibly going to the state looking for extra dollars to move snow. And so it would be nice to have a rainy day fund, if you will, on the road department in case we really get in a jam.
Well, and I think in that regard, it gives Al the flexibility to, if he wants to hire a private contractor, he knows that there's a funding available to do those kind of things. And I just think it's good policy. The state does it. They have a strategic reserve fund, so when their budget gets down, they can draw off of that. I just think it's good planning for us, and we're in a position where right now we don't necessarily need to burn these dollars up. So why wouldn't we set them aside for future? Because we don't know what the future is going to be.
And I think if you do a specific fund, I think that you're well within your limits to do that. But I think your idea of maybe putting a cap on it, and then if you need to readjust it, you can. So that way we can at least say, well, it's not going to build up to $10 million before it's used and wind up in the same predicament.
Yeah, I agree.
And as of right now, it would take, if let's say you didn't touch the money at all, and it kept coming in as it is, it would take about 2 years to hit the $1 million mark. So
again, I would throw out a discussion where we take 60 or 70% of those two lines, put it into a fund, and when that fund hits 2 million, I mean, we have a project right now, it's $5 million, so this wouldn't even be a dip in the bucket, but I don't think we want to put a big amount, but maybe 2 million, and when we hit that 2 million, it goes back to the original formula, and we have to use that money, we revert back to the other formula to fund it. That's kind of the concept I have in mind.
And one comment I'd like to make too is, what really helps us is our 10 mil fund. Because we levy them 10 mils, and that strictly goes to projects. We have state projects, our 20% share, other projects. So that's really been helpful for us to kind of keep our projects going. But like Neil said, we have bigger projects. And if we'd have this fund there, then we could say, you know what, we're going to get this much from the state, we need this much ourselves, dip in there. But, for right now, I think we're fine. But I think, like Neil said, in the future, we're on a roller coaster.
And where would you like to place that, in which fund?
I'd create a new one.
It would have to be a
Name it what
separate.
you want, but I would call it like a road reserve fund. I mean, I don't want to duplicate anything, and that's up to the auditor to determine the name, but my idea is the concept, what we want to do.
That would be put under County Road and Bridge then, or?
Well, it'd be another line up there. It would be a new fund. And then with the provision of that fund that we cap it and put certain limitations on how that works.
Karen, is there any restrictions, like when we get the state aid distribution, is there any restrictions on those dollars as far as can we use it for equipment, or, I mean, is it just across the board that we can use it however we want?
So my understanding is that as long as you are helping some of those other entities, right, like those fire departments and everything else, it is supposed to be used to help some of those, right? But it is still ultimately up to the commission with how they distribute the percentages. But there was nothing specifically like that. I mean, I can definitely double check that. I would want to double check it, but I didn't see anything in there. I mean, it's already going, right? 25% is already going to County Road and Organized and County Road and Bridge. Right. So it's a similar thing, except we would be diverting that to its own fund.
Go ahead.
As a suggestion, maybe we should have it like a future project fund, like road projects, not for equipment, just for strictly roads and, projects, no equipment.
I like that idea.
Do you use any of the, so currently, do you use any of the county road unorganized for road projects?
No. Well, we have some contractors, like if we need a contractor to help us with something, yeah, because we have a contracted line item. But pretty much the County Road and Bridge is just strictly, that's the old 10 mil.
Right, so so the technical question, I agree, but the technical question would be if we pull, I'm just gonna pull a number, 66% of those two funds to go into this future fund or whatever, that's totally fine, right, Karen?
I mean, yes, I do think you can do that. The only thing is whether or not Al is already, because I mean, that's already been figured, that 25% has already been figured into his revenue for next year. So I guess it just depends if he's already depending on that going in there, or if it's okay that it's going into a different fund.
I guess I just want to make it as flexible as possible and not be restrictive funds.
Because I will say that Al does, he has the 10 mil, right? And currently that mill is at 11.5 because when they did away with his other fund that he had, we were able to raise that to 11.5 for so many years, and then it has to go to a vote. And I have a feeling that we are at almost that so many years max where we could just add it in there, and we're about to go for a vote on that. And I don't know if that's going to be something that goes through, right? More than 10 mils.
I think I'd be okay with some fund that would have some monies in it for unforeseen things, weather experience. But now if it's a project for a gravel road, I mean, that stuff should all be planned in advance, funded beforehand. But if there was something out there that, we had a long 7-8 month winter, we needed to order more sand and salt from Canada.
I think there is don't we have, Karen, we have reserve for like emergency fund? Let's say we do got a bad winter, we can tap into that.
We do have emergency reserve fund. I want to say there's like 500 and something thousand in there, and we're not levying for that at all. So we do have that. And that is specifically for, the commission has to approve, like if emergency management wanted to use some of those funds or road for that same reason, they have to get permission to do that. But it does have a balance. I think that if you wanted to take portion from the general, who's currently at 58%, I think you could build up that fund more quickly, right? If you wanted to take a portion of that 58%, and then take a portion from the unorganized and the road and bridge, so that you're not just taking that entire piece out of his revenue stream for 2024.
Well, I think to start with, we think that 2024 is going to be pretty strong in that regard. So, again, we have the ability to look at this every 12 months. My preference would be to leave the general fund number the same, pull 2/3 out of the county road, unorganized, and county road and bridge, and put it into a separate fund and put a cap on that fund of $2 million.
Okay?
So then what would be the process if Val needs it?
I think comes to the
Comes
county
back to
commission.
us.
Yeah.
And it gives us a vested interest in what kind of projects are being done too, I think.
So, I mean, we already have the 24 budget. We've got these accounted for. The state aid distribution into county road and bridge and county roads unorganized, excuse me. So, I mean, that'll probably put us in a bit of a shortfall in those budgets, right? And we can supplement those budgets.
Paul, to
So-
your question there, I think we'll have some carryover to bring over into 24, so I don't really know what that state aid amount is, but I think we could probably get along without it, with the carryover we got coming.
I mean, between the two entities, you've got budgeted 500,000. Okay.
So was that a motion you were making or what?
No, but I certainly would.
Well, I was just wondering, did you put a cap on it? in your-
2 million.
Okay.
So I'll move, so we can move this along. I'll move that we take 2/3 of the state aid distribution payments from account 2120, 2155, and allocate those into a future road department projects up until the point that gets capped at 2 million. And then we would revert back to the original, this formula, or whatever is adjusted on an annual basis.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I would second that.
I have a second. Any other discussion?
Yes. So do we want to go so far as, take this time while we're doing this to make some, specifications of what these dollars can be used for?
Well, I think it's gonna be up to the commission to spend them, right?
Okay.
So if the road department has a project or a concept or something they need for it, if Al came up and wanted money for something, I don't care whether it's equipment or
And I don't-
roads or whatever,
Yeah.
he's gotta bring it to the full commission.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, we're all invested in how that money is spent. So the intent is, I want to give it some flexibility, so we're not tying our hands on how.
And we don't want to tie future commissions' hands.
Exactly,
you know.
exactly. Give them the flexibility and the authority to spend the money,
Right.
and us, whenever we're there.
And the question that I would have is, you haven't closed out, obviously, 2023 yet. So, and then 2024, there's no prairie dog funding, right?
No.
Would this be better to look at again come July, August? And make sure
Well, if,
we're budgeting?
if you look at our budget, I mean, we've already
Budget is there.
we've already provided for no
Okay.
bucket funds, because it comes through other sources.
But I do think you're right, Corey, in that instead of pushing this off till the December meeting, this should be something that should be done prior to or maybe even the meeting before the budget. So that way, if you do decide to change any of the percentages for any of the other entities, they can reflect that in their budget too.
So can we make that adjustment at any point during the year, or does it have to be at the end of the year?
No, you can change this anytime. I just, because you're affecting so many other ones, right?
I think the point Corey's making is if we adopt this policy now, come budget time, it looks like we should already amend it. We have the ability at that point to amend. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote then. Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Commissioner Claris.
Aye.
Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carried. Next, we go to the 2023 state audit decision.
5 minutes should be good. So the state auditor's office would like to schedule when we would like to start our 2023 audit. I'm bringing it to the commission because I know that it's been kind of a toss-up as far as auditor decisions on who's gonna audit Stark County. I included the costs of what our 2020 audit was, 2021 and 2022. And our most extensive audit for a single audit was the 2022 audit. The single audit we have to have if we expense more than $750,000 in federal funds. So obviously ARPA dollars pushed us over that threshold. But we have come down in price every year. I know that there was some discussions with the JDA portions of the audit. I kind of spoke to Linda Steve about that, and I would like to talk to the auditors about the JDA portion because I do think that that was kind of significant for the amount of transactions they have, and they're not contacting Stark Development about what the funds were used for, so I'm not sure where they came up with those hours. We've gone down every year. I expect that we will probably be even lower this year because I don't even think that we are going to have a single audit because the commission didn't really spend I'm pretty positive did not spend $750,000 in federal funds in 2023. So I have a good process with Brian. He kind of knows what's going on, and I would like to continue to work with him, but I just want the commission's permission to go forward with planning. Planning when we can schedule it, because we have to do it around elections. Right.
Anyone have any comments or discussion on this?
Yeah. Okay, so I agree. The audit is very informative. It's very functional. And it helps both sides in this. And so where I have a challenge is obviously with the JDA. I also have a challenge with them telling us how to inventory our gravel. And so I think one of the things we're talking about, the key here is what the engagement letter allows. And so I would like to see the state auditor do our audit again. No problem. I think Brian and Heath are very workable individuals. They know what our concerns are. But again, I think the engagement letter can't be a one-sided agreement where it's just a blank check for them. So the overall cost of the audit is not just $26,802 because the road department spent a bunch of extra time. The auditor's office spent a bunch of extra time on this gravel audit. So that is the expense to the auditor. And I think we're making great progress with them. They understand, and I think they've heard our concerns. And I would say once we have an engagement letter that is acceptable, that we move forward with them.
And they did amend the last engagement letter to include the hourly cost changes and stuff like that. Previously, it was really an open slate. So I think Neil's right that they are making changes in how they're addressing entities because, yeah, I agree. There should be some sort of dollar amount. And before that, we didn't even really know what they were charging an hour.
Right. Well, and I think one of the things we've talked about, and we're trying to work on this, so I don't know what your time frame recommendation is, Karen, is to create a menu from them to each political subdivision that wants to get audited and say, do you want a financial audit? Do you want the single audit? What things do you want audited that would comply with the statute? And then kind of put a price estimate on each one of those. And I think that's, if we can get to that point, then I think we've made a great step.
Any other discussion? Now I'll look for a motion.
I would move that the county auditor, Karen, entertain a letter of engagement from the state auditor's office to do our 2023 audit.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And we're at, go back to our public hearing then for the 2 parcels of land on there. I guess we have some background on that from the state attorney's office. Do you have some background on that, or?
This was just those 2 parcels that you agreed to move the price point down to $10, and then in accordance with statute, you have to have the public hearing before it can become finalized, so that's what this is. And then one other thing that we had talked about was whether, and I guess it's not under this, so maybe something for your discussion is whether you want to abate those taxes on those parcels. If those 2-3 individuals will buy them. I think it was 70, just 71 and change was the taxes on it.
Okay, open the public hearing. Does anybody from the public have any comment on that? Anybody from the public have any comment? Any comment from the public on this matter? Hearing none, then I'll close the public hearing then. And we need a motion then as far as the taxes, what do we want to do those?
So do you want 2 motions here or 1 motion to cover it all?
I think if you're gonna abate the taxes on both parcels, 1 motion is fine. If for some reason you wanna abate them on one and none on the other, then
Okay, but we want to set the value first.
we already did that.
Oh, okay.
Right, that last
Yes,
meeting, I
set
think
the
you guys
value
set it
for
at $10
$10 a
per
parcel.
parcel. Yep.
So I would move that we abate the taxes on the parcels identified for the 2 parcels identified.
Now it's second.
Motion a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution for SC 450020 for road project. This is a chip seal coating for, I believe this is for Highway 10 east from the,
Some Highway
Later.
10 east to Morton County, and then we go out to Taylor at the interstate.
and the bid amount on that was $1,804,270.81. What percentage is our cost on that?
20.
20%. Anybody have any questions or comments? If not, I'll look for a resolution or a motion for the, to sign the resolution for that project.
I'll move that we authorize the chairman to sign the contract for project SC 450020.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, then Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner Claris.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carried. Next item is establishing our 2024 Stark County precincts.
So I had them put up a map so you could see, and then I also provided the worded description of our current precincts. We currently have 8 precincts. I would love to have less, right? Because that's less ballots we'd have to make. But for the primary and for the fact of the school district lines, this is currently Stark County has to stick with eight precincts. So we are just going off of the ones that we redid in 2020 for the 2022 election, and we are using the same precinct numbers for the 2024 election.
Anyone have any questions? Now I'll look for a motion to approve the Stark County precincts.
I move we approve the 2024 Stark County precincts as presented.
A motion to have a second.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, then Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Claris.
Aye.
Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion carried. And we have the 2024 holidays for county employees. I think the only thing we had on there was a question on July 4th is on a Thursday. Are we gonna allow the Friday half day that we have them working on off or not?
To have the Friday after you're talking about?
After the 4th, yeah, the half day, they usually work on Fridays. 4 hours.
I would say probably not. I know I was pretty strict in the past few years about giving that making them work that half day, but
Okay. Any other discussion on the holidays? Not to look for a motion to approve the holidays then for the employees.
I make a motion to approve the holidays as presented for the employees of Stark County.
I second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Okay. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Commissioner Claris.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Is there anything else we need to do? Oh. Yeah, I guess there's some clarification the auditor wants on Christmas Eve, they have the 4 hours off that we've given in the past, correct? That's part of your motion?
I think it was
Sure.
Yes.
that
Okay.
and the July.
Not the July,
She
he
didn't
said
put
no.
the July one on.
No, we didn't want that.
Okay.
He didn't prove that. Okay. Anything else? Is there anything else that we need to discuss? Not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.